Marcus Cole heard the small footsteps before he saw her. He was crouched beside his Harley, checking the oil level after the long ride from Knoxville, when something made him look up. Call it instinct. Call it the sixth sense that 20 years of hard living had carved into his bones. Whatever it was, it saved him from missing the most important moment of his life. The girl stood 10 feet away, watching him with eyes that held no fear. That was the first thing that struck Marcus as wrong. Everyone feared him. Grown men crossed the street when they saw him coming. Mothers pulled their children close. Shop owners watched their security cameras with nervous fingers near their phones. But this tiny thing, this slip of a child, who couldn't have been more than 6 years old, stood there studying him like he was a problem she was trying to solve. "You lost sweetheart?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice soft. He'd learned long ago that his natural speaking tone could scare people, so he'd practiced making it gentler. It never quite worked, but he tried. The girl shook her head. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, the kind a child does for herself when no one helps her. She wore a faded pink shirt with some cartoon character Marcus didn't recognize, and denim shorts that were a size too small. Her sneakers had holes in them. But none of that was what made Marcus's chest tighten. It was the bruise. Purple and ugly, it spread from beneath her left eye, following the curve of her cheekbone. 3 days old, maybe 4, starting to turn that sick yellow-green color at the edges. Marcus had worn enough bruises in his life to know exactly how old this one was. He'd also given that same lie she was about to tell. "What happened to your eye?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "I fell." The words came quick and automatic, like she'd practiced them in a mirror. Her eyes didn't meet his when she said it. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. He knew that lie. He'd told that lie. He'd told it to teachers and neighbors and doctors. He'd told it until he'd almost believed it himself. "Okay," he said slowly, deciding not to push. "Not yet." "What's your name?" "Emma." "That's a pretty name. I'm Marcus." He tried to make himself smaller, less intimidating, crouching lower, even though his knees protested. "Your parents inside the diner?" Something flickered across Emma's face. Fear. Calculation. Determination. "My mom is at work," she said. "She works at the mill. Double shifts, mostly. My stepdad's supposed to be watching me, but he doesn't really watch. He just drinks and sleeps and yells and—" She stopped herself, pressed her lips together like she'd said too much. "How far did you walk to get here, Emma?" 3 miles, maybe more. I counted the mailboxes for a while, but then I lost track. 3 miles. This child had walked 3 miles alone past houses and roads and strangers to reach this truck stop on the edge of Maryville, Tennessee. Marcus's hands had started shaking. He pressed them flat against his thighs to hide it. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you walk all this way?" Emma took a deep breath. Marcus watched her gather courage like she was picking up something heavy, something almost too big for her small hands to hold. She reached into the pocket of her shorts and pulled out a plastic sandwich bag. Through the clear plastic, Marcus could see crumpled bills and scattered coins. "I have $15, Emma said, holding it out toward him. "Will that be enough?" "Enough for what?" The girl's voice dropped to a whisper. $15. To save my mom." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He actually rocked back on his heels, had to catch himself from falling. "Save your mom," he repeated, not quite believing what he was hearing. "Save her from what? From Derek. He's my stepdad." Emma's voice was steady, but Marcus could see her hands trembling. "He hits her. He hits me too, but mostly he hits her. And last night..." Her voice cracked. For the first time, she looked like what she was, a terrified 6-year-old child. Last night, he pushed her down the basement stairs. She had to go to the hospital. She told them she tripped, but I saw. I was hiding behind the couch because that's where I hide when he gets the bad look in his eyes, and I saw everything. Marcus couldn't speak. His throat had closed up. She came home with her arm all wrapped up, Emma continued. And she cried when she thought I was sleeping. She never cries where I can see, but I heard her. She cried for a long time. Emma, Marcus's voice came out rough, broken. Why do you think I can help? Because you're scary. The simple honesty of it nearly broke him. A few weeks ago we were driving somewhere, and we passed some bikers on the highway. Derek got all quiet and drove real careful until they were gone. He gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles went white. Emma looked at Marcus's leather vest, at the iron wolves patches, at the tattoos covering his arms. He said, "You people were dangerous." That's when I knew. Knew what? That if I could find someone scary enough, maybe Derek would stop. Maybe he'd be afraid of you like everyone else is afraid of him. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. This child, this tiny, brave, desperate child, had walked 3 miles alone to find a stranger scary enough to protect her. She'd saved up $15 from birthday money, and loose coins, and whatever small sum a 6-year-old could scrape together. She'd planned this. She'd been thinking about this for weeks, watching for bikers, waiting for her chance. And now here she stood, offering everything she had to a man covered in ink and leather because she'd run out of other options. "How long has Derek been hurting you and your mama?" Marcus asked. "He moved in after Christmas last year. It wasn't bad at first. He brought me a teddy bear, and he made Mama smile. But then he lost his job at the construction site, and he started drinking more, and the yelling started, and then—" She trailed off, looking at her worn sneakers. "The hitting started," Marcus finished for her. Emma nodded. "My mama says it'll get better, that he's just stressed, and once he finds a new job, everything will be okay again. But it's been 8 months, and he hasn't found a job, and it doesn't get better." Her voice dropped even lower. "It gets worse. Every week it gets worse." Marcus's hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. He forced himself to breathe, to think clearly. "Emma, I can't just go beat someone up, even if he deserves it. That's not how this works." Her face crumpled. Disappointment and fear mixed together in an expression that made Marcus's heart crack right down the middle. "But you're a biker. You're supposed to be scary. You're supposed to— Hey!" Marcus held up a hand gently. "I didn't say I wouldn't help. I said I can't just go beat someone up. There's a difference." Hope flickered in her eyes, fragile as a candle flame in the wind. "Really? You'll help us?" "Really? But I need you to do something for me first." "What?" "I need you to tell me everything. Where you live, what happens at home, every single thing you can remember. And I need you to tell me the truth. Can you do that?" Emma nodded slowly. She put her $15 back in her pocket. "But you have to promise not to tell Mama I came here," she said. "She'd be so mad. She says we shouldn't involve strangers in family business. She says, Emma." Marcus's voice was gentle, but firm. "When family business means someone's getting hurt, it stops being just family business. It becomes everybody's business. And your mama might be mad at first, but I think deep down she's going to be relieved. Keeping a secret like this is exhausting. Trust me, I know." Something in his tone made Emma look at him more carefully. "Did someone hurt you when you were little?" she asked. The question caught Marcus off guard. For a moment he was 7 years old again, hiding in the closet, listening to his father's boots on the floor, praying he wouldn't be found. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Someone did." "Did anyone help you?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "No," he finally said. "Nobody helped me. I had to wait until I was big enough to leave on my own." Emma absorbed this. Then she reached out and patted his tattooed hand with her small fingers. "That's sad," she said. "I'm sorry nobody helped you." Something in Marcus's chest shattered. He'd been patched up by paramedics and stitched by emergency room doctors and comforted by brothers who'd ridden beside him for decades. But this 6-year-old girl with her matter-of-fact compassion had just reached into his chest and touched something no one had touched in 40 years. "Come on," he said, his voice rougher than he'd intended. "Let's get you some food. When's the last time you ate?" Emma thought about it. "Yesterday, Derek ate the last of the cereal, and Mama didn't have time to go to the store before work." Marcus stood up so fast his vision went black for a second. "Okay," he said, forcing himself to stay calm. "Okay, first things first. Burger fries." "I've never had fries from a restaurant before." That simple statement, delivered without self-pity or complaint, nearly did Marcus in completely. "Well," he managed, "that's about to change." He led Emma toward the diner, walking slowly so her short legs could keep up. Through the window he could see his brothers in the corner booth, Hank Curtis, Jimmy Rull, and Pete. They were laughing about something relaxed after the charity ride, enjoying their break before the final push home. They had no idea their afternoon was about to change completely. Marcus pushed through the door, the bell chiming overhead. The smell of coffee and bacon grease wrapped around them like a familiar blanket. This truck stop diner was a regular stop for the Iron Wolves' good food fare prices, and an owner who'd never once looked at them with fear. His brothers stopped laughing when they saw his face. 20 years of riding together had taught them to read each other's expressions. They knew something was wrong. Then they saw Emma. Then they saw her black eye. Hank's expression went flat. Curtis's jaw tightened. Jimmy's hands curled into fists under the table. "Martha," Marcus called to the owner who was wiping down the counter. "We need a burger and fries for this young lady, and whatever ice cream you've got, on my tab." Martha looked over, saw the little girl, saw the bruise, and her weathered face hardened. She'd raised 3 kids of her own, and had no patience for anyone who hurt children. "Coming right up, honey," she said warmly to Emma. "You like chocolate ice cream or vanilla?" "Chocolate," Emma whispered, suddenly shy, in front of all these strangers. "Excellent choice. Best chocolate ice cream in 3 counties, that's what they say. You come sit right here at the counter and I'll fix you up something special." Marcus guided Emma to a stool, got her settled with a paper placemat and crayons Martha kept for the rare children who came through. Then he walked over to his brothers. They watched him approach, saw the darkness in his eyes. Every one of them straightened slightly, their relaxed postures shifting into something more alert. "Outside," Marcus said quietly. "Now." They didn't ask questions. They simply stood and followed him out. In the parking lot, standing in a loose circle between their motorcycles, Marcus told them everything. About the $15, about the 3-mile walk, about the bruise and the basement stairs, and the mother who cried when she thought her daughter was sleeping. When he finished, the silence was heavy enough to crush stone. "I want to break every bone in his body," Curtis said. His voice was calm, which made it more frightening. "Slowly, starting with his fingers." "Get in line," Jimmy growled. "No." Marcus's voice cut through the rising anger. "That's exactly what we're not going to do." "So what?" Hank demanded. "We just let this slide, let some piece of garbage keep beating on his wife and kid?" "I didn't say we do nothing." Marcus looked at each of them in turn. "I said we do it smart. That kid in there, she came to me because she thought scary was the answer. She thought violence was the only thing that could fix this. We're not going to prove her right." "Then what's the play?" Curtis asked. "We work the system. We make noise. We shine a light so bright on this situation that nobody can look away. And we make damn sure this Derek Holt knows that if he touches either of them again, his life becomes a living hell legally, officially, inescapably." Hank nodded slowly. the president's authority settling onto his shoulders like a familiar weight. "Curtis, your sister still works for CPS." "Yeah, I'll call her right now. Get someone out to that trailer today if possible." "Do it, Jimmy. I want you and Raoul to ride past the address once we get it. Don't engage, just observe. Note everything: vehicle's condition of the property, anything that looks wrong." "Got it." "Pete, call our lawyer Buddy, the one who does domestic violence cases pro bono. Tell him we might need him." Marcus felt the pieces starting to come together, a plan taking shape. "What about me?" he asked. "You stay with the kid," Hank said. "She trusted you. She chose you. Right now you're the only adult in the world she believes in. Don't let her down." It wasn't what Marcus wanted. He wanted to ride to that trailer right now. He wanted to see the fear in Derek Holt's eyes when he realized his violence was no longer secret. But Hank was right. Emma had walked 3 miles alone with nothing but $15 and hope that anyone would care enough to help. She'd chosen Marcus. He couldn't abandon her now. "Okay," he said. "But keep me updated. Everything that happens, I want to know." Curtis was already on his phone, walking away for privacy. The others mounted their bikes, waiting for the address that would send them toward Emma's home. Marcus watched them prepare his brothers, his family, these men who society dismissed as dangerous criminals. They were about to mobilize everything they had: contacts, resources, decades of experience, navigating systems that often failed the vulnerable, all because a 6-year-old girl with $15 had asked for help. He turned and walked back into the diner. Emma was working on her burger, which was nearly as big as her head. Martha had given her extra fries and was already scooping ice cream into a large bowl. The girl ate with a single-minded focus that told Marcus she was genuinely hungry, genuinely unsure when her next meal might come. He slid onto the stool beside her. "Your friends left," Emma observed around a mouthful of burger. "They're going to help," Marcus said. "They're making phone calls, figuring out the best way to make sure you and your mama are safe." Emma stopped chewing. Her eyes, so much older than they should be, searched his face. "But you're not going to beat up Derek." "No, I'm not." "Why not?" "He deserves it." "Maybe he does." Marcus turned to face her fully. "But here's the thing about doing the right thing, Emma. It's not always about what people deserve. It's about what actually helps." She frowned, considering this. "If I beat up Derek," Marcus continued, "what do you think happens next? He can't hurt Mama anymore because you hurt him first. For a little while, maybe. But then I go to jail for assault. And Derek, once he heals up, he's going to be meaner than ever. Because now he's embarrassed. Now everyone knows someone had to come save his wife and stepdaughter from him. And you know who he's going to blame for that embarrassment?" Emma's face went pale. "Mama. And me." "That's right. Beating him up might feel good for a minute, but it doesn't solve anything. It just makes things worse." Marcus paused, choosing his next words carefully. "And there's something else. If I solve this problem with my fists, what lesson does that teach you? That hitting is how you fix things." "Exactly. And you've already seen way too much hitting in your life. I don't want to add to that. I want to show you a different way." Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this with the solemn concentration of a child who'd been forced to grow up too fast. "What if talking doesn't work?" she finally asked. "What if Derek doesn't stop? Then we make sure the right people, the police, the courts, the people whose job it is to protect kids, do their job. And we make sure they know we're watching to see that they do it right." "Will my mama have to know I came here?" "Yes," Marcus said gently. "She needs to know that help is here. That she doesn't have to handle this alone anymore." Fear flickered across Emma's face. She's going to be so mad. Maybe at first. But I think more than that, she's going to be relieved. You know how heavy it is to carry a secret, a really big, really scary secret that you can't tell anyone. Emma nodded slowly. Your mom has been carrying that secret for months. Every bruise, every lie, every time she pretends everything's fine when it isn't, that's exhausting. Having someone finally see the truth, finally offer to help. Sometimes that's the biggest relief in the world. How do you know? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because I carried a secret like that when I was a kid, he finally said. And nobody ever helped me. I used to dream about it, someone noticing, someone asking, someone saying, I believe you and I'm going to help. It never happened. I had to wait until I was old enough to save myself. He looked at Emma, at her small hands wrapped around her burger, at the bruise that was finally starting to fade. That's not going to be your story, he said. You asked for help and you're going to get it. I promise. Emma studied him for a long moment. Then she did something that nearly stopped Marcus's heart. She leaned over and rested her head against his arm. Just for a second. A gesture of trust so simple and so profound that Marcus felt his eyes burn. Thank you, she whispered, for believing me. Marcus had to clear his throat twice before he could speak. Thank you for being brave enough to ask. They sat in silence for a few minutes, Emma finishing her fries, Marcus sipping coffee that had gone cold without him noticing. Through the window, he watched Curtis pace by the motorcycle's phone, pressed to his ear, expression intense. His sister must be getting an earful. The other riders had already gone, headed to Emma's address to observe, to gather information, to make their presence known in a way that would ripple through the neighborhood. This was really happening. 44 years old. Vice President of the Iron Wolves MC, covered in tattoos and carrying a reputation that made grown men nervous, and here he was sitting in a diner with a 6-year-old girl who'd trusted him with her life. He thought about what Emma had said, that she'd come looking for someone scary. All his life people had been afraid of him. He'd used that fear sometimes, leaned into it when it was useful, but he'd never really thought about what it might be like for someone to look at all that scary and see something else. Safety. Emma had looked at him, at the leather, and the ink, and the reputation, and she'd seen someone who could protect her, not someone who would hurt her, someone who would help. Mr. Marcus. Emma's small voice broke into his thoughts. Just Marcus is fine. Marcus, what's going to happen now to me and Mama? He turned to face her, giving her the respect of an honest answer. I don't know exactly, he admitted. But I know some things for sure. There are people coming to check on your house, people whose job it is to make sure kids are safe. They're going to talk to your mama, and they're going to make sure Derek can't hurt either of you anymore. Will we have to leave our house? Maybe, at least for a little while. Where will we go? There's a place in town, a shelter. It's for mamas and kids who need somewhere safe to stay while they figure things out. You'd have a bed and food and people to help. Emma considered this. Can I bring my teddy bear, the one Derek gave me when he first moved in? Marcus felt his throat tighten. Of course she'd still care about that bear. She was 6. The person who gave it to her might be a monster, but the bear itself was innocent. Yeah, kid, you can bring your teddy bear. Okay. She nodded, seemingly satisfied. Then, with the lightning-quick subject changes that only children were capable of, do you have kids? No, never got married, never had kids. Why not? The question was so simple, so direct. Kids never worried about whether something was appropriate to ask. They just asked. I guess I never found the right person, Marcus said. And by the time I might have been ready, I was too set in my ways, too used to being alone. That's sad, Emma said unknowingly, echoing her earlier words. Everyone should have someone. I have my brothers, the other bikers. They're my family. Emma thought about this. Like brothers you picked instead of brothers you're born with. Exactly like that. That's pretty cool. She dipped a fry in ketchup. Maybe when I grow up, I'll pick my family too. You know what kid I think you already started? Emma looked at him confused. You walked 3 miles to find help, Marcus explained. You picked me. You picked Martha, letting her feed you. You picked my brothers by accepting their help. He smiled, the expression feeling unfamiliar on his face. Picking your family is about choosing who you trust, who you let in. You did that today at 6 years old. That's pretty impressive. Emma's face lit up with something that looked like pride. So, am I part of your family now? The question hung in the air between them. Marcus thought about what it would mean to say yes. The responsibility. The commitment. The way this child was looking at him like his answer actually mattered. Yeah, he heard himself say. I think you are. Emma smiled, the first real, full smile he'd seen from her. It transformed her face, made her look like the carefree child she should have been allowed to be. Good, she said simply. Because I don't have a lot of family. Just Mama. My real dad left before I was born, and Mama's parents died when she was young, so it's just been me and her for a long time. Well, now you've got a few more people. The door opened, and Curtis walked in, his expression a complex mix of satisfaction and barely controlled anger. He slid into the stool on Emma's other side. My sister's fast-tracking this, he said, pitching his voice low. She's sending someone to the trailer this afternoon. The photos we're going to provide, combined with the medical records from the mom's ER visit last night, should be enough for emergency intervention. Medical records? Emma asked. You mean from when Mama hurt her arm? Curtis exchanged a glance with Marcus. The kid was sharp, listening to everything. Yeah, Curtis said gently. From when your Mama got hurt. She told them she tripped, but that's not what happened. We know, sweetheart, and pretty soon the right people are going to know too. Emma nodded solemnly. Then she turned to Curtis and studied him with those 2 old eyes. You were in the army, she said. It wasn't a question. Curtis's eyebrows rose. Marines, actually. How'd you know? You stand like my friend Jaden's dad. He was in the army. He stands really straight and walks like his feet are angry at the ground. Despite everything, Curtis let out a bark of laughter. Feet angry at the ground. That's pretty accurate. Jaden says his dad has something called PTSD, from when he was in the war. Do you have that too? Curtis's smile faded slightly, but he didn't look away from her direct gaze. Yeah, he said quietly. I do. Does it ever go away? Not completely, but it gets easier. You learn how to live with it. You find people who understand. He gestured at Marcus. That's what these guys are for me. Brothers who get it. Emma absorbed this information with her usual seriousness. I think I might have it too, she said. Sometimes at night I hear footsteps and my heart goes really fast, and I can't breathe right. And I dream about the bad things happening again, but in the dreams they're even worse. Curtis and Marcus exchanged another look. This time the rage was harder to hide. That's called hypervigilance, Curtis said, his voice carefully calm. Your body learned to watch for danger all the time, even when you're safe. It's not your fault. It's just your brain trying to protect you. Can I learn to live with it too, like you did? Yeah, kid. With the right help, you absolutely can. Okay. Emma went back to her ice cream, apparently satisfied with this answer. That's good to know. Marcus marveled at her resilience. She'd laid out something deeply painful and then moved on, trusting that the adults around her would help her figure it out. That's what childhood should be, trusting adults to handle the hard stuff. It made him even angrier that Derek Holt had stolen that trust from her, and even more determined to help her rebuild it. His phone buzzed. A text from Hank. At the trailer. It's bad. Empty bottles everywhere. Holes in walls. Neighbors are watching us. They know something's been wrong but didn't want to get involved. They're talking now, though. Everyone's talking. Marcus typed back CPS on the way. Keep the pressure on. He looked at the clock. Almost 4 p.m. Emma said her mother got off work at 6. 2 more hours. 2 more hours until Sarah Sullivan discovered that her carefully hidden nightmare had been exposed. Until she learned that her 6-year-old daughter had walked 3 miles to beg a stranger for help. Until she had to decide whether to accept that help or retreat back into the lie. Marcus had seen it go both ways. He'd seen women find the courage to leave, to rebuild, to create new lives. He'd also seen them go back to their abusers too scared or too trapped or too beaten down to imagine anything different. He hoped Sarah Sullivan was the first kind, for Emma's sake, for both their sakes. Marcus. Emma's voice pulled him back to the present. Yeah, kid. If my mama says no, if she says she doesn't want help and she wants to go back to Derek, will you make her? It was possibly the hardest question anyone had ever asked him. I can't make your mama do anything, Marcus said honestly. She's a grown-up, and grown-ups get to make their own choices even when those choices aren't good. Emma's face fell. But, Marcus continued, I can make sure she knows what help is available. I can make sure she knows she's not alone. And if she chooses to go back right now, that doesn't mean she'll stay there forever. Sometimes people need a few tries before they're ready. The important thing is that the door is always open. The help is always there when she's ready to take it. What if she's never ready? Marcus reached out and gently covered Emma's small hand with his own. Then we make sure you're safe anyway, he said. No matter what your mama decides, you are going to be protected. I promise you that, even if I have to adopt you myself and teach you to ride a motorcycle. Emma's eyes went wide. Can you do that? Can you just adopt someone? It's complicated, but if it came to that, we'd figure it out. For the first time, Emma's composure cracked. Her chin wobbled, her eyes filled with tears. Nobody ever... She stopped, swallowed hard, tried again. Nobody ever said they'd take care of me. Not like that. Not for real. Well, somebody's saying it now. The tears spilled over. Emma leaned into Marcus's side and cried, not the loud, dramatic crying of a child who's used to being comforted, but the quiet, shaking sobs of someone who's learned to keep their pain silent. Marcus put his arm around her and let her cry. He didn't say anything, didn't try to make it stop. Just let her feel whatever she was feeling while she finally had someone to lean on. Martha watched from behind the counter, her own eyes suspiciously bright. Curtis turned away, blinking hard, pretending to check his phone. And outside, the Iron Wolves continued their work, making calls, gathering evidence, preparing for the confrontation that was still to come. The sun was starting its slow descent toward the Tennessee mountains. In 2 hours, Sarah Sullivan would walk through that door, and nothing would ever be the same. The headlights swept across the parking lot at 6:47 p.m. Marcus knew it was her before the car even stopped. The tired Honda Civic with the dented rear bumper, the way it pulled into a spot near the door like the driver was too exhausted to walk any further than necessary. Emma had stopped eating an hour ago. She'd been sitting quietly coloring in a book Martha had found, but her eyes kept darting to the window every time a car passed. Now she went completely still. That's Mama's car. Marcus stood up slowly. Okay. Remember what we talked about? Emma nodded, but her face had gone pale. She's going to be so mad. Maybe, but I'll be right here. The car door opened, and Sarah Sullivan stepped out. Even from across the parking lot, Marcus could see the exhaustion carved into her body. She moved like someone who'd been running on empty for months, years maybe. Her blonde hair, the same shade as Emma's, was pulled back in a messy bun. She still wore her blue work uniform from the mill. Her left wrist was wrapped in an elastic bandage. She spotted Emma through the window, and her face transformed. Relief first, then confusion, then a flash of fear when she noticed the bikers inside. Sarah practically ran to the door. "Emma!" She burst through the bell, jangling wildly. "What are you doing here? I told you to stay home with Derek. I've been calling the house for an hour." Emma shrank back on her stool. "Mama, do you have any idea how worried I was? I came home and you were gone. Derek said you must have run off somewhere and I thought—" She stopped, finally taking in the scene. Her daughter at the counter, the empty plates, the two large men in leather vests sitting on either side of her like bodyguards. What's going on? Who are these people? Mrs. Sullivan. Marcus stood slowly, keeping his hands visible, trying not to spook her. "My name is Marcus Cole. Your daughter came to us for help this afternoon." Sarah's eyes went wide. She grabbed Emma's arm, pulling her off the stool and behind her body in one swift, protective motion. "Help with what, Emma? What did you tell them?" "The truth, Mama." Those two words hit Sarah like a slap. All the color drained from her face. I don't know what she said, but children make up stories all the time. She has a very active imagination. We should go home now. Derek's waiting and— "Mrs. Sullivan." Curtis's voice was calm but firm. "We know about the abuse. We know about what happened last night. We know about the stairs." Sarah's hand flew to her bandaged wrist. "I tripped. I already told the hospital. I tripped and— Mama!" Emma's small voice cut through her mother's panic. I was hiding behind the couch. I saw him push you." The words landed like stones in still water. Sarah stared at her daughter. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Something behind her eyes cracked. "We need to go." Her voice shook. "Right now. We need to go home." "Ma'am, I don't think that's a good idea." Marcus stepped closer, slow and careful, like approaching a wounded animal. "Derek knows something's up. My brothers went by your place earlier. He saw them. He knows people are watching now." "You went to my house." Sarah's voice rose to something close to hysteria. "You told Derek that Emma— oh God, he's going to be so angry. That's why you can't go back there tonight. You don't understand." Sarah was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand how he gets. If he thinks I put her up to this, if he thinks I told someone— Mama." Emma tugged at her mother's shirt. "Mama, I did it by myself. You didn't tell anyone. I did. I walked here and I found Marcus and I asked him to help us." Sarah looked down at her daughter, really looked at her, and Marcus watched her register the bruise under Emma's eye, like she was seeing it for the first time. "Oh, baby." Sarah dropped to her knees and pulled Emma into her arms. "Oh, my baby. What did he do to you?" "It was last week, after you went to work. I dropped a glass in the kitchen and it broke, and he got so mad, Mama. He got the look in his eyes, the scary one, and I tried to run, but—" Sarah was shaking now, her whole body trembling as she held her daughter. "I'm sorry." She kept saying it over and over. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." "Mrs. Sullivan." Marcus crouched down to their level. "This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. You're in a situation where someone with more power has been using that power to control you. That's not a failure. That's abuse." "I tried to leave." Sarah's voice was muffled against Emma's hair. "I've thought about it 100 times, but I don't have any money. He controls everything. I don't have family. My parents are gone. I have nowhere to go, and no one to help, and— You do now!" Sarah looked up at him, her face streaked with tears and mascara. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you help us? You don't even know us." Because your daughter walked 3 miles alone to find help. Because she saved up $15 and tried to pay me to protect you. Because she's 6 years old and she had more courage than most grown adults I've ever met. Marcus held her gaze. And because I know what it's like to be a scared kid with nobody in your corner. I know what it's like to pray for someone to notice, someone to care. Nobody came for me, Mrs. Sullivan. But I can come for your daughter. I can come for you. A sob tore out of Sarah's chest. She pressed her face against Emma's hair and cried harder than Marcus had ever seen anyone cry. Martha appeared with a box of tissues and a cup of coffee. She set them quietly on the counter and retreated, giving them space. Minutes passed. The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, the last light of sunset faded to purple. Finally, Sarah's sobs slowed. She pulled back, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "He'll find us," she said, her voice ragged. "Wherever we go, he'll find us. He always says that. He says he'll kill me if I ever try to leave. He says..." Sarah. Marcus used her first name deliberately, making it personal. "I'm not going to lie to you. The next few weeks are going to be hard. But you won't be alone. There are resources, shelters, legal protections, and my brothers and I were not going anywhere. We're going to make sure Derek Holt understands that he can't hurt you anymore. Not because we'll beat him up, but because we'll make his life a living hell if he tries. Legal hell. Documented hell. The kind of hell that ends with him in a prison cell." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "I'm a nurse," she finally said. Almost to herself. "I'm supposed to be the one taking care of people. I'm supposed to be strong. How did I end up here? How did I let this happen to my daughter?" "Stop." Curtis's voice was sharp. "Right now, stop that. You didn't let anything happen. Abusers are master manipulators. They isolate you. They make you doubt yourself. They take away your support system one piece at a time until you feel like you have no options. That's not weakness on your part. That's a calculated campaign of destruction on his. But Emma is alive and safe because you kept her alive through the worst of it. You worked double shifts to feed her. You put yourself between her and Derek whenever you could. You took the hits so she wouldn't have to." "Not always." Sarah's voice cracked. "I couldn't always protect her." No one can always protect someone. But you did your best with impossible circumstances. And now you have help. Real help. The question is, are you going to take it?" Sarah looked at Emma, who was watching her with those 2 old eyes. "Mama," Emma said softly, "I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of hiding behind the couch. I'm tired of listening to him hurt you and not being able to do anything. Please, please let them help us." Something shifted in Sarah's face. The fear didn't disappear, but something else rose up alongside it. Something harder, more determined. "What do I need to do?" she asked. Martha stepped forward, then her practical energy cutting through the heavy emotion. "First thing you need to do is eat something. You look like you're about to fall over. I'm going to fix you a plate, and while you eat, these boys are going to explain what happens next. One step at a time. That's how we do this. One step at a time." She put her hand on Sarah's shoulder, gentle but firm. "You're safe here, honey. Nothing bad is going to happen in my diner. I've been running this place for 30 years and no one has ever been hurt under my roof. That's not changing tonight." Sarah nodded numbly. She let Martha guide her to a booth, Emma refusing to let go of her hand. Marcus sat across from them. Curtis slid in beside him. "The first step," Marcus said, "is that you don't go home tonight. There's a shelter in town for women and children in situations like yours. They have beds, food security. They're expecting you." "Expecting me?" "How did you..." "We've been making calls all afternoon. While Emma was eating her ice cream, we were building a net to catch you." "I don't understand. You didn't even know if I'd say yes." "We were hopeful." Sarah shook her head slowly, like she was trying to wake up from a dream. I can't believe this is real. This morning I woke up and it was just another day. Just another day of pretending everything was fine. And now everything changes, Curtis said. It's going to feel like a lot. It's going to be overwhelming sometimes. But you're going to take it one step at a time, and you're going to have people walking with you every step of the way. Martha returned with a plate of food. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, vegetables. Simple but hearty. She set it in front of Sarah. "Eat," she ordered. "You're no good to anyone if you collapse from hunger." Sarah picked up her fork mechanically. Took a bite. Chewed. Swallowed. Like she'd forgotten what eating felt like. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Hank. CPS worker at the trailer. Derek denied everything. Got aggressive. Deputy on scene now. House is being documented. This is real. He showed the text to Curtis. "It's happening," Curtis said to Sarah. "Right now as we speak, your house is being investigated. Derek's lies are being recorded. The evidence is being gathered." "He's going to be so angry." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "He can be angry all he wants, but his anger can't reach you anymore. Not where you're going." Emma had been quiet, pressed against her mother's side. Now she looked up. "Mama, does this mean we don't have to go back ever?" Sarah stroked her daughter's hair. "I don't know, baby, maybe. It's complicated." "What's complicated about it?" Emma's voice held a child's pure logic. "Derek hurts us. If we don't go back, he can't hurt us. Simple." "Life isn't always simple, sweetheart." "Why not? Why do grown-ups make everything so complicated? He's bad. We leave. The end." Marcus felt his throat tighten. She was right. In the purest sense, she was absolutely right. It should be that simple. The fact that it wasn't was one of the great injustices of the world. "You know what, kid?" he said. "You're smarter than most adults I know." Emma nodded seriously. "I know." Despite everything, Sarah laughed. A small broken sound, but a laugh nonetheless. She pulled Emma closer and kissed the top of her head. "She's always been like this, since she could talk. Asking questions I don't know how to answer, seeing things I wish she couldn't see. Like me." Emma said it matter-of-factly. "I see things." "What do you mean?" Curtis asked. "I see when people are lying. I see when something's wrong even when everyone pretends it's fine. Like at school. My teacher asks if everyone's okay, and all the kids say yes, but I can tell when they're not. Jaden's okay, but his eyes are sad. Madison says she loves her new baby brother, but she hates him. Tommy's scared of his dad, but he pretends he's not." She looked at Marcus. "And you? You pretend you're scary, but you're not. You're just sad. Really, really deep down sad." The silence that followed was profound. Marcus stared at this 6-year-old girl who had just looked straight into his soul and named what she found there. "How do you know that?" he managed. "Your eyes," Emma said simply. "They look like mine when I'm trying not to cry." Marcus had to look away, had to breathe through the sudden tightness in his chest. "She does that?" Sarah said softly. "Sees things, knows things. Derek hated it. Said she was creepy. Said she watched him too much." "She's not creepy," Curtis said. "She's perceptive. There's a difference. And in a house where she had to predict danger to survive, that perception probably saved her life more than once." "I always knew when he was about to get bad," Emma confirmed. "His shoulders would go up, and his hands would make fists, and his face would get red. When I saw those things, I knew to hide." "You shouldn't have to know that," Sarah's voice broke. "You shouldn't have to know any of that." But I do. And now it's okay because Marcus is going to help us. Sarah looked at Marcus, really looked at him, at the tattoos and the leather and the rough exterior, at the man underneath who had put his arm around her daughter and let her cry. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "What do you get out of it?" "Nothing," Marcus said honestly. "I don't get anything out of it except knowing that maybe some kid doesn't have to grow up like I did. Maybe some mother gets to actually be a mother instead of a punching bag. Maybe somewhere something actually gets better instead of staying broken." He paused. "That's enough. That's more than enough." Sarah nodded slowly. She ate another bite of her dinner, drank some water. "I have things at the house," she said. "Clothes, Emma's teddy bear, our documents. If we're not going back, I can have some of my brothers escort you tomorrow while Derek's at work if he goes to work. Or we can get police to supervise. One way or another, you'll get your things." "My teddy bear," Emma said urgently. "The one Derek gave me when he first moved in. I know he's bad, but the bear isn't bad. The bear is my friend. Can I still have it?" "Of course you can have it," Marcus said gently. "The bear didn't do anything wrong." "That's what I thought too." The door opened, and everyone tensed, but it was just Hank pulling off his helmet as he entered. He nodded at Marcus, then approached the booth. His massive frame and stern expression would have intimidated anyone, but he smiled at Emma, transforming his face into something surprisingly kind. "You must be the brave little girl I've been hearing about," he said. "I'm Hank. I'm kind of the boss of these guys. Like a principal, something like that. Are you going to help us too?" "I'm going to do everything I can." Emma studied him for a moment with those perceptive eyes. "You're sad too," she announced. "But a different kind of sad than Marcus. Yours is older." Hank blinked, caught off guard. He looked at Marcus, who just shrugged. "She does that," Marcus said. "I see." Hank turned back to Emma. "You're right. I am sad. I lost someone important to me a long time ago, but I try to use that sadness to help other people instead of letting it eat me up." Emma considered this. "That's smart. Mama cries when she's sad. Derek hits things, I hide, but helping people sounds better." "It is better." Hank slid into the booth next to Curtis. "Mrs. Sullivan, I want you to know that what happens next is entirely up to you. We can't force you to accept help, but I want you to understand something. Your daughter walked 3 miles alone because she believed someone out there would care. She found us, and we do care. This isn't going away. We're not going away. However long it takes, whatever you need, we're here." Sarah's chin trembled. "I keep waiting for the catch, for you to want something in return. The only thing we want is for you and your daughter to be safe. That's it. No catch. No strings. Why, I'm nobody. I'm just some woman from a trailer park who was stupid enough to let a monster into her home. Why would you—" "Because Emma saw something in us that we'd forgotten was there." Hank's voice was quiet, but intense. "She saw protection. She saw help. She saw safety. And if a 6-year-old child can look at a bunch of scary bikers and see good guys, then maybe that's who we need to be. Maybe that's who we've always been underneath everything else." Sarah was crying again, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. Emma reached up and wiped one away. "It's okay to cry, Mama," she said. "Sometimes crying helps the bad feelings get out." "When did you get so wise?" Sarah asked, her voice thick. "I've always been wise. You just didn't notice because you were too busy being scared." It was such a simple statement. Such a devastating one. Sarah pulled her daughter close and held on like Emma was the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly gone fluid. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I let you be scared for so long." "It's okay. You were scared too. But now we have the motorcycle people, and they're going to help us not be scared anymore. The motorcycle people. Hank smiled despite the gravity of the moment. I like that. It's what you are, Emma said with her usual directness. You ride motorcycles and you help people. Motorcycle people. You know what, kid? That's probably the best description of us I've ever heard. Outside, the night had fully arrived. Stars were starting to appear above the mountains. Inside the diner, something new was being born, fragile, as a newborn uncertain as the first steps of a child learning to walk. But it was real. It was hope. And for the first time in a long, long time, Sarah Sullivan allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe tomorrow might be better than today. Okay, she said, her voice steadier now. Tell me about this shelter. Tell me what happens next. Marcus felt something ease in his chest. The first hurdle had been crossed. There's a woman named Diana who runs the Maryville Women's Shelter. She's expecting you tonight. You'll have your own room with 2 beds. There's a communal kitchen, but also food provided if you need it. There are counselors available around the clock. And the location is completely confidential. What about my job? We'll figure that out. The shelter has resources for helping women keep their jobs without their abusers finding out where they're staying. And school Emma starts 1st grade in 2 weeks. They can help with that too. Transfer her records discreetly, set up transportation. Sarah nodded, processing, making lists in her head, switching from terrified victim to practical mother. What about Derek? What happens to him? That depends on a lot of things. The investigation, your statement, whether you want to press charges. If I press charges, he'll come after us. If you don't press charges, he stays free to find someone else to hurt. Maybe a woman with a daughter who doesn't have the courage Emma has. A woman with no one to walk 3 miles for help. Sarah flinched, but she didn't look away. I need to think about it. You have time. This isn't a decision you need to make tonight. Tonight you just need to get somewhere safe. Everything else can come later. Martha appeared with a bag of food. For the road, she said. And for tomorrow morning. That shelter kitchen is fine, but my biscuits are better. Sarah took the bag with trembling hands. I don't know how to thank you, all of you. You can thank us by getting better, Martha said firmly. By taking that little girl of yours and building a new life. That's thanks enough. Sarah stood still, holding Emma's hand. I guess we should go. I'll escort you to the shelter, Curtis said. Make sure you get there safe. And I'll be by tomorrow to check on you, Marcus added. Make sure you have everything you need. Get you your things from the house. Sarah hesitated, then did something unexpected. She stepped forward and hugged Marcus, a quick, fierce embrace that was over almost before it started. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder, for believing my daughter, for believing me. Then she stepped back embarrassed and took Emma's hand again. Ready, baby. Emma looked at Marcus. Will you really come visit tomorrow? First thing. Promise? Promise. Emma nodded solemnly. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the plastic bag with her $15. I want you to have this, she said, holding it out to Marcus. I told you I'm not taking your money. I know. It's not payment anymore. It's a present. For being good when you didn't have to be. Marcus stared at the crumpled bills and scattered coins. $15. Everything a 6-year-old girl had in the world. I can't take your savings, Emma. Then don't save it. Use it for something good. Use it to help another kid like me, another kid who needs someone to believe them. Marcus took the bag. His hands weren't quite steady. You know what? That's exactly what I'll do. Emma smiled. That full, real smile that transformed her face. Good. Because I think there are a lot of scared kids out there. And maybe if they knew there were motorcycle people who would help them, They wouldn't be so scared anymore. Marcus had to clear his throat twice before he could speak. Maybe you're right, kid. Maybe you're absolutely right. Sarah guided Emma toward the door. At the threshold, Emma turned back one more time. Marcus. Yeah, you're my friend now. Friends forever. Friends forever, Marcus agreed. Then they were gone, following Curtis's motorcycle into the night. Marcus stood at the window, watching the taillights disappear. Hank came to stand beside him. Hell of a day. Hell of a kid. What she said about the scared kids out there. I know. I've been thinking about it too. Maybe we should do something about that. Formally. Set up some kind of program. Outreach to families in trouble. The Iron Wolves champions of abused children. Marcus almost laughed. Not exactly our reputation. Maybe it's time to change our reputation. Marcus looked at the plastic bag in his hand. $15. A child's entire fortune given in trust that it would be used for good. Yeah, he said slowly. Maybe it is. Outside, the night was dark, but the stars were bright above the mountains. And somewhere on the road to the shelter, a 6-year-old girl who had walked 3 miles alone was finally on her way to safety. 4 days of Bess. 4 days of Emma sleeping through the night without waking up screaming. 4 days of Sarah eating 3 meals a day instead of picking at scraps after Derek finished. 4 days of something that almost felt like normal. Then Derek Holt found them. It happened on a Thursday evening. Sarah had just finished her shift at the mill. One of the shelter volunteers had picked her up from work, so Derek couldn't follow her car. Emma was in the shelter's playroom, coloring with 2 other children whose mothers had also fled violent homes. Sarah was walking down the hallway toward the room when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. A habit from years of Derek calling from different phones when he'd smashed his own in a rage. Hello. Did you really think you could hide from me? Sarah's blood turned to ice. Derek. I know where you are, Sarah. I've been watching. That little shelter you're staying at, the one on Maple Street, I drove past it 3 times today. Saw you walk in after work. Sarah's hand went to the wall to steady herself. How did you... I'm not stupid. You think those bikers scared me? You think some social worker asking questions changes anything? His voice dropped to that low, dangerous tone she knew so well. You're my wife. Emma's my daughter. You belong to me. She's not your daughter. She's never been your daughter. And I'm not your property. Oh, listen to you. Growing a spine. Is that what your new biker friends taught you? Is that what they told you to say? Derek, I'm going to hang up now. Don't call me again. If you hang up, I'm coming inside right now. And those nice ladies at the shelter can't stop me. The police can't get here fast enough. You know what I can do in 3 minutes, Sarah. You know exactly what I can do. Sarah's legs gave out. She slid down the wall, pressing her back against it, phone clutched to her ear. What do you want? I want you to come home. Tonight. You bring Emma. You walk out of that shelter, and you come home where you belong. We'll forget this ever happened. I'll be better. I promise. I'll get help. You've said that before. I mean it this time. I've been thinking a lot since you left. I've been going to AA meetings. I'm changing, Sarah. I'm really changing. For a moment, just a moment, Sarah felt the old familiar pull. The hope that maybe this time would be different. The desperate wish that the man she'd fallen in love with was still in there somewhere. Then she remembered Emma's black eye. She remembered the sound of her own body hitting the basement stairs. She remembered her daughter walking 3 miles alone because she'd given up on the adults in her life being able to protect her. No. The word came out stronger than she expected. What did you say? I said no. I'm not coming home. I'm not bringing Emma anywhere near you. And if you come to this shelter, I'll call the police. I'll press charges. I'll make sure you never see either of us again." Silence on the line. Long, dangerous silence. When Derek spoke again, his voice had changed. The fake sweetness was gone. What remained was pure venom. "You think you can threaten me? You think you can take my family and walk away? I'll kill you, Sarah. Do you hear me? I'll kill you and that creepy little brat of yours. I'll burn that shelter to the ground with everyone in it. You have no idea what I'm capable of." Sarah's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the phone. But something else was happening too. Something she hadn't felt in years. Anger. "Actually, I know exactly what you're capable of. That's why I left. That's why I'm never coming back. And every word you just said, I'm recording this call, Derek. The police are going to love hearing you threaten to kill me and burn down a building full of women and children." She wasn't recording. She didn't even know how to record calls on her phone. But the bluff worked. Dead silence. "You're lying. Try me." More silence. Sarah could hear him breathing, could almost feel his rage pulsing through the phone. "This isn't over," he finally said. "This will never be over. I'll find a way. Sooner or later, I'll find a way." The line went dead. Sarah sat on the floor of the hallway, shaking from head to toe. A shelter volunteer found her there 5 minutes later and immediately called Diana, the shelter director. Within the hour, Marcus was there. "Tell me exactly what he said," he demanded, pacing the small office, while Sarah sat wrapped in a blanket someone had given her. "Every word. He said he knew where the shelter was. He said he'd been watching. He said he'd kill me and Emma. He said he'd burn this place down. That's enough for a restraining order. Maybe enough for criminal charges. He'll claim he was just angry, that he didn't mean it. Doesn't matter. A threat is a threat. And with everything else we've documented, this builds the case." Marcus stopped pacing and crouched in front of her. "Sarah, I need you to listen to me carefully. Are you listening?" She nodded. "He's escalating. When abusers feel like they're losing control, they get more dangerous, not less. The next few days, the next few weeks, these are the most critical. You cannot let your guard down. Not for a second." "I know. I know that." "Good. Now here's what we're going to do. I'm going to have brothers watching this shelter around the clock. Not inside, not intrusive, but close enough to respond if anything happens. We're going to get you a burner phone so he can't track your number. And we're going to file for that restraining order first thing tomorrow morning. Will a piece of paper really stop him? By itself, no. But it gives us legal ground to stand on. If he violates it, he goes to jail. And more importantly, it tells the courts and the police that this is serious, that this isn't just a domestic dispute. This is a man who threatens murder." Diana knocked and entered. "Mrs. Sullivan Emma's asking for you. She knows something's wrong." Sarah wiped her eyes. "I'll be right there. One more thing." Marcus caught her arm gently as she stood. "I know you're scared. I know this feels impossible. But you are doing everything right. You're protecting your daughter. You're standing up for yourself. That takes more courage than most people ever have to find." "I don't feel courageous. I feel like I'm going to throw up." That's what courage feels like. It's not the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing while you're scared out of your mind. Sarah managed a weak smile. "Emma said something like that once. She said I was brave even when I didn't feel like it." "Smart kid. Too smart for her own good." She found Emma in the playroom, sitting apart from the other children watching the door with anxious eyes. The moment she saw her mother, she ran. "Mama, someone told me there was yelling. What happened? Is Derek here? Did he find us?" Sarah caught her daughter and held tight. "He's not here, baby. He called on the phone, that's all. He said some mean things, but he's not here." Is he going to come? Sarah looked at Marcus, who had followed her to the doorway. He might try, she said honestly. She was done lying to Emma, done pretending everything was fine. But there are people watching, people protecting us. He can't hurt us as long as we're careful. Emma's face went hard in a way that no 6-year-old's face should ever go hard. If he comes here, I'll fight him. No, baby, I will. I'll bite him and kick him and scratch his eyes. He can't hurt you anymore. I won't let him. Sarah's heart cracked right down the middle. Her little girl, her baby, ready to fight a grown man to protect her mother. That's not your job, sweetheart. That's not what little girls are supposed to do. I don't care what little girls are supposed to do. I care about keeping you safe. Marcus stepped forward. Hey, Emma. Can I tell you something? Emma looked up at him, her small fists still clenched. I know you want to protect your mama. I know you love her more than anything. But here's the thing about being brave. Sometimes being brave means letting other people help. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust the adults around you to handle the dangerous stuff while you focus on being a kid. But I already did that. I trusted Derek to be nice, and he wasn't. You're right, and that was wrong. Derek broke your trust, and that's on him, not you. But not every adult is like Derek. Your mama isn't like Derek. Martha at the diner isn't like Derek. I'm not like Derek. Sometimes you have to give people a chance to prove they're trustworthy. How do I know who to trust? Marcus thought about it. Really thought, because this wasn't a question with an easy answer. You watch. You pay attention. You trust the people whose actions match their words. Derek said he loved you, but his actions were hurtful. I told you I'd help, and I'm here. Actions matter more than words. Emma considered this with her usual intensity. You came when you said you would. I did. And you didn't make Mama go back when she was scared. No. And you put people outside to watch in case Derek comes. That's right. Emma nodded slowly. Okay, I trust you, but I'm still going to watch, just in case. Fair enough. Watching is smart. Just don't forget to be a kid, too. Okay? Color some pictures. Play with the other children. Let yourself have fun sometimes. I'll try. It was the best he was going to get. That night, Marcus sat in the parking lot of a convenience store, half a block from the shelter. Curtis was parked on the opposite side of the building. Jimmy had drawn the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift. Around 11 p.m., Marcus's phone rang. Hank. Update on Derek Holt. He got fired from his temp job at the warehouse this afternoon. Showed up drunk and started a fight with his supervisor. So he's unemployed, angry, and probably drinking more. That's the picture. Great. That's exactly what we needed. There's more. Pete talked to one of Derek's neighbors. Apparently Derek's been telling everyone who'll listen that his wife was kidnapped by a biker gang, that you're holding her hostage, that you're running some kind of trafficking operation. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. He's building a narrative, trying to make himself look like the victim. Exactly. And there are people who believe him. His drinking buddies, a few neighbors who never liked bikers anyway. He's creating a support network of idiots who think he's been wronged. Can we use that against him? Working on it. If he makes any moves based on that narrative, if he tries to rescue Sarah, it'll blow up in his face. But until then, we wait and watch. I hate waiting. I know, but patience is part of the game. We can't give him anything to use against us. Everything has to be above board. Marcus ended the call and stared at the shelter's windows. Most were dark now. People sleeping, trying to rest after days or months or years of never being able to relax. He thought about Emma probably lying in bed next to her mother, listening for footsteps, ready to hide at the first sign of danger. No child should have to live like that. No child should have to be the brave one. Around 1 a.m., a truck drove slowly past the shelter. Too slowly. Marcus photographed the license plate, checked the registration. Derek Holt. His hands shook as he typed the message to Curtis. The truck circled the block twice more before driving away. "He's testing us," Curtis responded. "Seeing who's watching. Well, now he knows. That's not necessarily good. Now he knows how many of us there are. He can plan around that. What choice do we have? None. We keep watching, we keep documenting, and we wait for him to make a mistake." The mistake came 3 nights later. It was 2:37 a.m. when Marcus's phone screamed him awake. Jimmy's voice high and tight with adrenaline. "He's here! Derek's here! Back entrance! He's trying to break in!" Marcus was in his truck before Jimmy finished talking. 90 seconds later, he was peeling into the shelter parking lot. He could hear screaming before he even opened his door. Inside, chaos. Women and children running, crying, clutching each other. Shelter workers trying to maintain order while police sirens wailed in the distance. And at the back door, Derek Holt. He had a tire iron in his hand. The door was half-broken glass, shattered, deadbolt twisted. Jimmy was between Derek and the interior, hands up, talking fast. "Put it down, man, put it down, you don't want to do this. Get out of my way. She's my wife. You can't keep her from me. You're breaking and entering. The cops are coming. You're going to jail if you don't walk away right now." "I don't care. I don't care about jail. I want what's mine." Marcus approached from the side. Silent, careful. Derek was so focused on Jimmy that he didn't see him coming. "Derek!" The man's spun tire iron raised. His eyes were wild pupils, blown, reeking of whiskey, even from 10 feet away. You did this. You poisoned her against me. You stole my family." "I didn't steal anything. Sarah chose to leave. Emma chose to ask for help. They made their own decisions." "Lies. She would never leave me. She loves me." "Is this love, Derek, breaking down doors in the middle of the night, terrorizing a building full of women and children? Is this what love looks like to you?" Derek's face crumbled for just a second. Something human flickered behind the rage. Then it was gone. "You don't understand. You don't know what it's like. She's all I have. Without her, without Emma, I'm nothing. I'm nobody." "Then get help. Real help. Put down the tire iron, walk away, and get help." "It's too late for that." "It's never too late." For a moment, one impossibly long moment, it seemed like Derek might actually listen. His arm lowered slightly, his breathing slowed. Then a small voice cut through the silence. "Derek." Emma stood at the end of the hallway, Sarah behind her, trying to pull her back. But Emma had broken free. She stood there in her pajamas, her stuffed bear clutched in her arms, looking at the man who had terrorized her for the past 8 months. "Why do you want to hurt us?" she asked. "What did we ever do to you?" Derek's face twisted. "You. This is all because of you. You little brat. You ungrateful little—" He lunged. Marcus moved faster than he'd ever moved in his life. He hit Derek at the waist, tackling him to the ground. The tire iron skidded across the floor. Jimmy was there in an instant, pinning Derek's arm. Curtis appeared from somewhere, getting the other arm. Derek thrashed and screamed, but 3 against 1, there was no contest. "Get Emma out of here," Marcus shouted. "Get her out." Sarah grabbed her daughter and ran. Other shelter workers shepherded the rest of the residents to safety. Police burst through the front door seconds later, weapons drawn. "On the ground! Everyone on the ground!" "We're friendlies," Jimmy shouted. "We're holding the suspect. He's the intruder." It took 15 minutes to sort everything out. 15 minutes of explanations and IDs and statements. 15 minutes of Derek screaming threats and accusations and lies. But in the end, there was only one story the evidence told. Derek Holt was arrested for breaking and entering destruction of property assault with a deadly weapon and violating a restraining order that had been filed 2 days earlier. As the deputies loaded him into the cruiser, Derek locked eyes with Marcus. "This isn't over," he said, his voice deadly calm. "When I get out, and I will get out, I'm coming for all of you. Every single one." The door slammed. The cruiser drove away. Marcus found Sarah and Emma huddled in the shelter's common room, surrounded by other residents and staff. Emma was silent, staring at nothing. Sarah was crying softly. "Is he gone?" Emma whispered. "He's gone. The police took him. But he said he'd come back when he gets out." Marcus knelt in front of her. "Listen to me, Emma. The things Derek did tonight. Breaking and threatening people trying to hurt you. Those are serious crimes. He's not getting out anytime soon. And even when he does, there are going to be conditions. Probation, monitoring. If he comes anywhere near you, he goes right back to jail. Do you promise?" Marcus hesitated. He didn't want to make promises he couldn't keep. But looking at this little girl's terrified face, he made a choice. "I promise that I will do everything in my power to keep you safe, me and all my brothers, for as long as it takes, for as long as you need us." Emma threw herself into his arms. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Marcus held her and looked at Sarah over her daughter's head. "It's over," he said quietly. "This part, at least. It's over." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I believed him, you know. For a second when he said he'd changed, I almost believed him. It's natural. You loved him once. Part of you wanted the person you fell in love with to be real. He was never real. It was all an act. The nice version of Derek, the one who brought Emma a teddy bear and made me smile, he never existed. It was just a mask the monster wore until he felt safe enough to take it off." Marcus didn't argue. He'd known too many men like Derek. Men who were charming right up until they weren't. Men who could make you believe anything right up until they showed you who they really were. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. Now we rebuild. One step at a time, like Martha said. Court dates, therapy, finding a new apartment when you're ready, starting over." "That sounds exhausting." "It will be, but you won't be doing it alone. You've got an entire family now. A weird, tattooed motorcycle-riding family, but family nonetheless." Sarah laughed through her tears. "Emma was right about you guys. You're not scary. You're just rough around the edges." "Rough around the edges?" Marcus smiled. "I'll take that." Emma had fallen asleep in his arms, exhausted from fear and relief and the emotional hurricane of the night. Marcus carried her to the small room she shared with her mother and laid her gently on the bed. Sarah covered her with a blanket and kissed her forehead. "She saved us, you know," Sarah said softly, looking at her sleeping daughter. "That day she walked to the truck stop. She saved both of us." "No," Marcus said. "You saved each other. You just needed a little help seeing the way out." He left them sleeping, mother and daughter, finally safe. Outside, the first gray light of dawn was breaking over the mountains. His brothers were gathered in the parking lot, tired but wired with the aftermath of adrenaline. "Hell of a night," Hank said. "Hell of a night," Marcus agreed. "Think it'll stick the charges?" "With what he did tonight, combined with everything else. Yeah, I think it'll stick." "Good," Hank clapped him on the shoulder. "You did good, brother. That little girl, that family, they're going to be okay because of you. Because of us, all of us. Yeah. Hank looked at the shelter, at the broken back door that would need to be repaired, at the building full of women and children who had witnessed violence once again, but had also witnessed men putting themselves in harm's way to protect them. You know, that kid said something the other day about scared kids out there, about maybe helping more of them. I remember. I've been thinking about it. Maybe she's onto something. Maybe this is what we should be doing. What we should have been doing all along. Marcus looked at the rising sun, at his brothers, at the shelter full of people whose lives had just been turned upside down. Yeah, he said. Maybe she is. Emma's $15 was still in his pocket. He'd been carrying it everywhere since she gave it to him. A child's entire fortune. A symbol of trust. A responsibility he hadn't asked for, but had fully accepted. Let's get some coffee, he said. Then we figure out what comes next. The sun continued to rise over the Tennessee mountains, and somewhere inside the shelter, a 6-year-old girl slept peacefully for the first time in months. Safe, protected, loved. 6 weeks after the night Derek Holt tried to break into the shelter, Marcus stood outside the Blount County Courthouse waiting for the verdict. Sarah was inside with her lawyer. Emma was with Martha at the diner, safe and distracted with coloring books and chocolate milkshakes. The other iron wolves were scattered around the courthouse, pretending to be casual, ready to respond to anything. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Sarah's lawyer. Guilty on all counts. 5 to 7 years. Earliest possible parole in 3. Marcus closed his eyes and let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. 3 years. 3 years of safety. 3 years for Emma to grow up without fear. 3 years for Sarah to rebuild her life, to become the woman she was supposed to be before Derek Holt crushed her spirit. It wasn't forever. But it was enough. When Sarah emerged from the courthouse, she was crying. But these were different tears. Relief. Release. The kind of crying that happens when you finally put down a weight you've been carrying so long, you forgot what it felt like to stand up straight. It's over, she said, almost disbelieving. It's really over. Marcus hugged her, a quick, appropriate embrace. You did it. You stood up in that courtroom and told the truth. That took guts. I almost didn't. When I saw him sitting there looking at me with those eyes, I almost ran. I almost took Emma and disappeared and never looked back. But you didn't. No, because I kept thinking about what you said, about how if I didn't press charges, he'd find someone else, another woman, another child, and I couldn't let that happen, not if I could stop it. That's called being a hero, Sarah. She laughed, shaky but real. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mom who finally woke up. Same thing. They drove to the diner together. When they walked in, Emma looked up from her coloring book and immediately read her mother's face. Did the judge put him in jail? Yes, baby, for a long time. How long? At least 3 years. Maybe more. Emma processed this with her usual intensity. I'll be 9 when he gets out, almost 10. That's right. Will he still be angry? Sarah knelt down to her daughter's level. I don't know, sweetheart. But we'll deal with that when it comes. Right now, all that matters is that we're safe. And we're going to stay safe. Because of Marcus and the motorcycle people. Because of a lot of people. Marcus, Martha, Diana at the shelter, the lawyer, the judge. Everyone who helped us. Emma turned to Marcus, her face serious. Thank you for putting Derek in jail. I didn't put him in jail, kid. The judge did that. Your mama's testimony did that. The police and the lawyers and everyone who worked on this case did that. I just helped a little. You helped a lot. Emma slid off her stool and hugged his leg the way she'd done that first day in the parking lot. You believed me when I told you the truth. Nobody ever believed me before. Marcus's throat tightened. He crouched down to her level. You know what, Emma? You taught me something important. You taught me that even when you're small, even when you're scared, you can still do brave things. You walked 3 miles alone to find help. You testified in court when you were terrified. You never gave up, not once. That's not nothing. That's everything. I learned it from watching Mama. She never gave up either. Sarah's eyes filled with fresh tears. She pulled Emma into her arms and held on tight. Martha watched from behind the counter, dabbing at her own eyes with a dish towel. Okay, she said gruffly, trying to break the emotional tension. Enough crying. We've got celebrating to do. Burgers for everyone. On the house. And pie. Nobody leaves this diner without pie. The celebration lasted well into the evening. Other club members drifted in as word spread. Curtis brought his sister, the CPS worker who'd fast-tracked Emma's case. Diana from the shelter stopped by with a card signed by every resident. Even Sheriff Patterson, who'd initially been skeptical of biker involvement, came in to offer congratulations. But eventually the crowd thinned. The party wound down, and Marcus found himself alone at the counter with Emma, who was working on her 3rd slice of pie. Slow down, kid. You're going to make yourself sick. Worth it. She took another massive bite. Martha makes the best pie in Tennessee. Can't argue with that. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Emma spoke. What happens now? What do you mean? Derek's in jail. Mama and me are safe. Does that mean you're going to leave? Marcus looked at her. Really looked. At the face that had grown a little rounder in the past weeks, no longer gaunt from skipped meals. At the eyes that were starting to lose their haunted quality. At the child who was finally slowly learning to be a child again. Do you want me to leave? No. The answer came quick and certain. You're my friend. Friends don't leave. Then I'm not leaving. I told you, Emma. You're family now. That doesn't change just because the crisis is over. Promise. Promise. Emma nodded, satisfied. She went back to her pie. Marcus thought about what came next. The trial was over, but the work wasn't done. Sarah still needed help finding a permanent apartment. Emma needed to start school, which meant records and transportation and a dozen other logistics. There were therapy appointments to schedule bills to sort out a whole new life to build from the ground up. And beyond that, there were the other cases. The phone calls that had started coming in after word spread about what the Iron Wolves had done for Emma and Sarah. Other women in similar situations. Other children with bruises they claimed came from falling. 5 requests in the first 2 weeks after Derek's arrest. Then 8 more. Then a dozen. People were reaching out. People who'd been hiding in silence, just like Sarah finally seeing a glimmer of hope. Hank had called a church meeting last week to discuss it. The vote had been unanimous. The Iron Wolves were going to formalize their efforts, create an actual program, partner with shelters and legal aid organizations and law enforcement. They were going to become what Emma had envisioned that first day. Motorcycle people who helped scared kids and scared moms and scared dads and anyone else who needed someone in their corner. Marcus. Emma's voice pulled him back to the present. Yeah. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you ever get lonely? The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? I'm just wondering. You don't have a wife or kids. You live by yourself. When you go home at night, is there anyone waiting for you? Marcus thought about his small apartment. The empty fridge. The bed that only had one pillow. The silence that greeted him every time he walked through the door. Not usually, he admitted. That sounds sad. It's what I'm used to. But being used to something doesn't mean it's good. Mama was used to Derek hitting her. That didn't make it okay. Marcus stared at this 6-year-old who kept slicing straight to the heart of things. You're right, he said. Being used to something doesn't make it good. So maybe you should change it. Find someone to not be lonely with. It's not that simple, kid. Why not? Mama says love is complicated, but I think adults just make it complicated because they're scared. Like, what if you just told someone you liked them? What if you just asked them to not be lonely with you? What's the worst that could happen? They could say no. So then you ask someone else. Eventually someone says yes. That's how it works. Marcus laughed despite himself. Where did you get so smart? I was born this way. Mama says I came out of her tummy already asking questions. I believe it. Emma finished her pie and pushed the plate away. Will you think about it? About not being lonely anymore? I'll think about it. Good. She yawned suddenly, the long day finally catching up with her. I'm tired. Can we go home now? Home. The word had taken on new meaning for Emma in recent weeks. It no longer meant a trailer filled with fear. It meant the small apartment Sarah had rented with help from the shelter's housing program. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. But it was theirs. Safe. Quiet. Let me get your mama. Sarah was in the back, helping Martha clean up. She'd insisted on it, despite Martha's protests that she was a guest. I'm not a guest anymore, Sarah had said firmly. I'm family, and family helps with the dishes. She looked up when Marcus appeared. Is Emma ready to go? She's falling asleep at the counter. Sarah smiled, wiping her hands on a towel. That child can fall asleep anywhere. Used to drive Derek crazy. He said she was lazy. Her smile faded slightly at the memory. But she wasn't lazy. She was just tired all the time from being scared. She's sleeping better now. Most nights. She still has nightmares sometimes, but they're getting less frequent. That's good. That's really good. Sarah studied him for a moment. You okay? You seem distracted. Just thinking about what comes next. For Emma and me, or for you? Marcus hesitated. Both, I guess. Sarah nodded slowly. You know, Emma asked me something the other day. She asked if you could come have dinner with us sometimes. Like a regular family dinner, not crisis management or witness prep. Just normal. What did you tell her? I told her I'd have to ask you. So I'm asking. Sarah's cheeks flushed slightly. Would you want to do that? Come over for dinner sometime? Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Something he'd closed off a long time ago, cracking open just a little. I'd like that, he heard himself say. Good. Sarah's smile returned warm and genuine. How about tomorrow night I'm making spaghetti? It's Emma's favorite. I'll be there. They walked out together, Sarah carrying a sleeping Emma over her shoulder. Marcus helped them into the car, made sure everyone was buckled in safely. See you tomorrow, Sarah said through the window. Tomorrow. He watched them drive away, then stood alone in the parking lot for a long moment. His phone buzzed. Text from Hank. New request came in. Woman in Pigeon Forge. 2 kids. Husband just got out of prison. She's terrified. Can you take it? Marcus looked at the disappearing tail lights of Sarah's car. Thought about dinner tomorrow. Thought about Emma's question about loneliness. Then he typed back, "Send me the details, because that's what you did. You helped the ones in front of you, and then you helped the next ones, and the ones after that. You kept going, because stopping meant letting the darkness win, and Marcus Cole had spent too much of his life in darkness to let it win now. The next morning, Marcus met with Rebecca Thornton at a coffee shop in Pigeon Forge. She was thin and nervous, wearing sunglasses, even though they were inside her hands wrapped around her cup, like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to earth. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know who else to call. My sister gave me your name. She said you helped a woman in Maryville." "Sarah Sullivan. Yes. She said you and your club, you actually helped. You didn't just make promises and disappear." "That's what we try to do." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about your situation." Rebecca's story came out in fragments. Married young. 2 kids, ages 4 and 7. Husband Tommy started using meth after losing his job at the quarry. Started dealing to pay for his habit. Got caught. Went to prison for 3 years. "I thought it was over," Rebecca said. "I thought when he went away I could finally breathe. I got a job. I found an apartment. The kids were doing better in school. Everything was getting better. And then he got out. Last month. He says he's clean, but I can tell he's using again. And he's been following me, showing up at my work, showing up at the kids' school. He hasn't touched me yet, but I know that look in his eyes. I've seen it before." "Have you gone to the police?" "They said there's nothing they can do until he actually does something. Showing up places isn't illegal. Making threats without witnesses isn't enough." She laughed bitterly. "They told me to call back if he hit me, as if that would be helpful after I was already hurt." "What about a restraining order?" "I tried. The judge said there wasn't enough evidence of imminent danger." She pulled off her sunglasses, revealing dark circles under her eyes. "I haven't slept in 3 weeks. Every noise makes me jump. My kids are scared again after years of finally feeling safe. And nobody will help. Nobody cares." "I care," Marcus said. "My brothers care. We're going to figure this out. What can you do that the police can't?" "We can make Tommy understand that he's being watched. That his actions have consequences. That if he comes near you or your children, there will be people who respond. Not with violence, but with documentation and witnesses, and enough pressure to make his life very uncomfortable." "You'd do that for a stranger. You're not a stranger anymore. You reached out. That makes you family." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I don't even know what that means anymore. Family. My parents disowned me when I married Tommy. Said I was making my bed, I'd have to lie in it. When things got bad, they said, 'I told you so.' They've never even met their grandchildren." Marcus thought about his own family. His father, who'd used his fists instead of his words. His mother, who'd been too broken to protect him. The years of foster care after she finally overdosed. "Family isn't always blood," he said. "Sometimes it's the people who show up when everything falls apart. The people who stick around when it would be easier to walk away." Rebecca nodded slowly. "When can you start?" "We already have." That evening, Marcus had dinner with Sarah and Emma as planned. The apartment was small, but clean, decorated with drawings Emma had made at school. A new painting hung above the couch, a landscape of mountains that Sarah had picked up at a thrift store. "It's not much," Sarah said, a little embarrassed. "But it's ours." "It's perfect," Marcus said. Emma insisted on giving him a tour, showing him her bedroom with its second-hand bed and hand-me-down dresser, the bathroom she didn't have to share with anyone, scary the kitchen where Mama made pancakes on Saturday mornings. "And this is my favorite spot." She pointed to a corner of the living room where a beanbag chair sat next to a bookshelf. "I read here. Marcus, did you know I can read chapter books now? Real chapter books with no pictures." "I didn't know that. That's impressive." "My teacher says I'm the best reader in 1st grade. She says I'm going to skip ahead next year." Sarah smiled from the kitchen. "She's been testing off the charts since she started school. Her teacher wants to have her evaluated for the gifted program." "Not surprised. Marcus said. "This kid's smarter than most adults I know." Emma beamed. "I know." Dinner was simple, but good. Spaghetti with sauce from a jar, garlic bread from a frozen box, salad from a bag. Nothing fancy. Everything wonderful. They talked about normal things. Emma's favorite subject at school. Sarah's new schedule at the mill, day shifts, now better hours. The weather. The upcoming holidays. It felt domestic, comfortable, like something Marcus had spent 44 years assuming he'd never have. After dinner, Emma asked if Marcus would read her a bedtime story. Sarah gave permission, and Marcus found himself sitting on the edge of Emma's bed, a battered copy of Charlotte's Web in his hands. He read 2 chapters, while Emma's eyes got heavier and heavier. By the end of the 2nd chapter, she was asleep. Marcus closed the book quietly and started to stand. "Marcus." Emma's voice was drowsy, half asleep. "Yeah, kid. I'm glad you're here." "Me too." "Will you come back? As often as your mama will let me?" "Good." She rolled over, hugging her teddy bear. "You're my favorite person, after Mama." "That's a pretty high ranking. You earned it." He stood there for a moment, watching her sleep. This child who'd walked 3 miles with $15 and changed everything. This brave, brilliant little girl who saw the world more clearly than most adults ever would. In the living room, Sarah was cleaning up from dinner. Marcus insisted on helping, and they worked side by side in the small kitchen, washing dishes and drying them and putting them away. "She adores you," Sarah said quietly. "I've never seen her attached to anyone like this. Not even Derek, and she tried so hard to like him in the beginning." "She's easy to adore back." Sarah turned to face him, dish towel in her hands. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why are you really doing this? Not the club stuff, the official helping people stuff. I mean this. Dinner. Reading bedtime stories. Coming over like we're actually family." Marcus thought about the question. Really thought. "Because my whole life I've been the scary one. The one people avoid. The one mothers protect their children from. And I got used to that. I leaned into it. Told myself I didn't need anyone, didn't want anyone. That alone was safer than together. And now a 6-year-old girl looked at me and saw something nobody else has ever seen. She saw someone worth trusting. Someone worth asking for help. Someone worth calling family." He met Sarah's eyes. That changed something in me. I don't know how to explain it better than that. Sarah stepped closer. "You don't have to explain it. I understand." "You do? When you've spent years being told you're worthless, being treated like you're invisible, having someone see you, really see you, is the most powerful thing in the world. Emma gave that to you. You gave that to me." They stood close together in the small kitchen, close enough that Marcus could count the freckles on Sarah's nose, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. "I should probably go," he said, though he made no move to leave. "Probably," Sarah agreed. Neither of them moved. "I'm not good at this," Marcus said. "Relationships, feelings, normal human connection. I've spent too long on the outside looking in. That makes 2 of us. It wouldn't be easy. I have a lot of baggage, a lot of damage, and my life isn't exactly conventional." "Marcus." Sarah put her hand on his arm. "I spent 8 months with a man who seemed perfect on the surface and was a monster underneath. I'm not interested in perfect anymore. I'm interested in real. I'm interested in someone who shows up, someone who keeps their promises, someone my daughter already loves. I don't want to mess this up." "Then don't." She said it like it was the simplest thing in the world, like choosing to be happy was just a decision you made and then followed through on. Maybe it was. "Can I take you to dinner?" Marcus asked. A real dinner, without a 6-year-old chaperone. Something that might be called a date. Sarah smiled. The real smile, the one that reached her eyes, the one that made her look 10 years younger. I thought you'd never ask. 1 year. 365 days since a 6-year-old girl with $15 had walked into Marcus Cole's life and changed everything. Marcus stood at the window of his new apartment watching the sunrise paint the Tennessee mountains in shades of gold and pink. Not his old apartment, the empty one with the single pillow and the silent rooms. This one had 3 bedrooms. A kitchen that actually got used. A living room filled with Emma's drawings and Sarah's thrift store finds, and the accumulated evidence of a life being built together. They'd moved in together 4 months ago. Sarah had been nervous about it, worried about moving too fast, worried about what people would think. But Emma had settled the debate with her usual directness. If Marcus is my family and you're my family, why don't we all just live in the same house? That's what families do. Hard to argue with that logic. Now Marcus watched the sun rise and thought about how different his life had become. A year ago, he'd been alone in every way that mattered. Now he woke up to Emma's chatter and Sarah's coffee and the kind of domestic chaos he'd never imagined for himself. You're up early. Sarah appeared beside him, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. She was still in her pajamas, hair messy from sleep, beautiful in the way that real people are beautiful when they're not trying to be. Couldn't sleep, thinking about today. The ceremony, yeah. Today was the official launch of the Iron Wolves Foundation. A year of informal helping had become something official, something real. They'd partnered with shelters and legal aid organizations across eastern Tennessee. They'd established a hotline for families in crisis. They'd created a network of volunteers, not just bikers, but teachers and nurses and lawyers and ordinary citizens who wanted to make a difference. And today, at the community center in Maryville, they were going to celebrate that work publicly. For the first time, the Iron Wolves were stepping out of the shadows and declaring themselves as what Emma had always seen them as, motorcycle people who helped scared kids. Nervous? Sarah asked. Terrified. You, the man who tackled Derek Holt while he was swinging a tire iron, terrified of a press conference. Tackling bad guys is easy. Talking about feelings in front of cameras is hard. Sarah laughed and kissed his shoulder. You'll be fine. Just speak from the heart. That's what you're good at. I'm not good at anything involving public speaking. Then pretend you're talking to Emma. You never have trouble finding words when you're explaining something to her. That was true. Emma had a way of making him speak plainly, honestly, without all the walls he usually put up. Where is she anyway? Marcus asked. She's usually up by now. Still asleep. Big day wore her out before it even started. She was up until midnight practicing her speech. Her speech? She didn't tell you she insisted on having a part in the ceremony. Hank approved it. She's going to tell her story in her own words. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Is that a good idea? She's 7? That's a lot of pressure. I said the same thing. You know what she told me. She said, Mama, my story might help another kid like me decide to ask for help. If I don't tell it, maybe they'll stay scared. I don't want anyone to stay scared because I was too nervous to talk. That kid is going to rule the world someday. Probably. But first she needs breakfast. I'll start the pancakes. Marcus watched Sarah walk to the kitchen, still marveling at how natural this felt. How right. A year ago, he couldn't have imagined this life. Now he couldn't imagine going back to the old one. Emma appeared an hour later, wearing a dress Sarah had bought for the occasion. She looked older than 7, more serious, like she was already rehearsing what she would say. Good morning, Marcus. Morning, kid. Sleep okay? Not really. I kept dreaming about the ceremony. What if I forget my words? Then you'll remember them. And if you don't, you'll make up new ones. You're the best talker I know. Emma considered this. That's true. I am pretty good at talking. Humble, too. What's humble mean? It means knowing you're good at something but not bragging about it. Oh. Emma thought about this. I don't think I'm humble then. I think I'm just honest. Marcus laughed. Fair enough. They ate breakfast together, the three of them, around the small kitchen table. Pancakes and eggs and orange juice. Normal, domestic. The kind of morning millions of families had without thinking twice about it. But Marcus thought about it. He thought about how rare this was, how precious. How easily it could have gone differently. I have something for you, Emma said, suddenly sliding off her chair and running to her room. She came back with a folded piece of paper which she handed to Marcus solemnly. I wrote this last night. It's for the ceremony, but I wanted you to read it first. Marcus unfolded the paper. Emma's careful handwriting covered both sides, the letters slightly uneven, but perfectly legible. Should I read it out loud? Yes, so Mama can hear too. Marcus cleared his throat and began. My name is Emma Sullivan. I am 7 years old. 1 year ago, I walked 3 miles to find someone who could help my mama and me. I had $15 in my pocket. That was all the money I had in the whole world. I found Marcus Cole in a parking lot. He looked scary. He had tattoos everywhere, and he wore leather, and everyone always said bikers were dangerous. But I was more scared of my stepdad than I was of any biker, so I asked Marcus for help. He could have said no. He could have told me to go away. He could have laughed at me or ignored me or pretended he didn't see my black eye. But he didn't do any of those things. He listened. He believed me. He helped. Now my mama and me live in a safe apartment. My stepdad is in jail. I go to school and I have friends and I don't have to hide behind the couch anymore. I don't have to count my stepdad's beers to know if it's going to be a bad night. I don't have to listen for his footsteps. But I know there are other kids out there who are still scared. Kids who still count beers and listen for footsteps and hide in closets and behind couches. Kids who think nobody cares. Kids who think they're alone. I want those kids to know something. You are not alone. There are people who will help you. There are motorcycle people and shelter people and teacher people and all kinds of people who care about you. You just have to ask. Asking for help is the bravest thing you can do. It's scarier than fighting. It's scarier than running. It's the scariest thing in the world because you have to trust that someone will listen. But someone will. I promise. Someone will. The Iron Wolves Foundation is for all the scared kids. It's for their mamas and their daddies and anyone who needs someone in their corner. It's for everyone who's been told they don't matter. You do matter. You matter so much. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. Marcus had to stop reading because his voice had given out. He stared at the paper, at Emma's careful handwriting, at the wisdom of a 7-year-old who had seen too much but refused to let it break her. Sarah was crying openly. Baby, that's beautiful. Do you think it's good enough? Emma asked anxiously. I worked really hard on it. It's perfect, Marcus managed. Absolutely perfect. You're crying. I'm not crying. I have allergies. You don't have allergies. I do today. Emma smiled. That full, bright smile that still had the power to crack his heart wide open. It's okay to cry, Marcus. Sometimes crying helps the feelings get out. I learned that from Mama. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just noticed. The community center was packed by the time they arrived. Local news cameras, journalists from bigger outlets who'd heard about the story, families who'd been helped over the past year, community members who wanted to show support. The iron wolves were there in force leather vests, and all standing around the perimeter like tattooed guardians. Marcus spotted Rebecca Thornton in the crowd, her 2 kids beside her. Tommy had violated his parole 2 months ago and was back in prison. Rebecca had enrolled in nursing school. Her kids were thriving. Jennifer, the woman who'd approached Marcus at the diner all those months ago, was there too. She'd left her husband, gotten her GED, started working at a domestic violence shelter herself. She gave Marcus a small wave when their eyes met. There were others, faces he recognized from cases over the past year. Faces he didn't recognize, people who'd heard about the foundation and wanted to be part of something good. Hank took the podium first. He spoke about the club's history, their decision to formalize their efforts, the partnerships they'd built. He kept it short, practical, focused on the work rather than the emotions. Then, it was Marcus's turn. He walked to the microphone on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. All those faces looking at him, all those cameras pointed at him. He'd faced down armed men with more composure than this. Then he saw Emma in the front row. She gave him a thumbs up. He thought about Sarah's advice. Pretend you're talking to Emma. A year ago, Marcus began, his voice rough but steady. A little girl walked 3 miles with $15 in her pocket. She was looking for someone scary enough to make her stepdad stop hurting her and her mama. She found me. He paused, letting that sink in. I've been called a lot of things in my life, most of them not appropriate for this audience. But nobody had ever looked at me and seen someone who could help. Someone who would help. That little girl saw something in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself a long time ago. He looked at Emma, who was watching him with those intense eyes. She reminded me that scary doesn't have to mean dangerous, that tough doesn't have to mean cruel, that the same strength people fear can be used to protect instead of harm. When I was 7 years old, I was a scared kid too. I used to pray for someone to notice, someone to care, someone to ask me about the bruises and not accept I fell as an answer. Nobody came. I had to wait until I was big enough to save myself. That's not the world I want to live in. That's not the world any child should have to grow up in. Every kid deserves someone in their corner. Every parent trapped in a violent home deserves a way out. Every person who's been told they don't matter deserves to know that they do. The Iron Wolves Foundation exists because a little girl had the courage to ask for help. Everything we've built this year, the hotline, the partnerships, the network of volunteers, it all started with her, with $15 and a prayer that someone would listen. So here's what I want to say to anyone out there who's scared right now. Anyone hiding behind couches or counting beers or listening for footsteps. Anyone who's been told that asking for help is weak, that family business stays in the family, that nobody cares what happens behind closed doors. We care. We're listening. And we're not going anywhere. That's the promise of this foundation. Not that we can fix everything. Not that we can make all the bad people go away. But that when you reach out, someone will reach back. When you ask for help, someone will answer. Because that's what Emma taught us. That's what one brave little girl with $15 taught a bunch of scary bikers who thought they'd seen everything. Sometimes the smallest voice carries the loudest message. Sometimes the person who asks for help ends up saving everyone else. He stepped back from the microphone. The applause started slowly, then built into something thunderous. People were on their feet. People were crying. But Marcus barely noticed. He was watching Emma, who had left her seat and was walking toward the podium. It was her turn. She climbed the steps carefully, her dress swishing around her knees. She had to stand on a box to reach the microphone. The room went silent. "My name is Emma Sullivan," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I am 7 years old." She didn't read from her paper. She'd memorized every word. She told her story, the walking, the $15. the fear that had been her constant companion for 8 months. The moment she saw Marcus and decided to trust him. She talked about her mama, about how brave Sarah had been even when she was terrified. She talked about the motorcycle people who'd shown up when they said they would, who'd kept their promises, who'd proved that not all adults were liars. And then she said something that wasn't in her written speech. "I want to talk to the kids who are scared right now," she said. "I know you're out there. Maybe you're watching this on TV. Maybe your mom or dad told you about it. Maybe you're listening while pretending not to care because caring is too dangerous. I want you to know that I was you. I was the kid who pretended everything was fine. I was the kid who said I fell when teachers asked about bruises. I was the kid who thought nobody would believe me even if I told the truth. But I was wrong. There are people who believe. There are people who help. You just have to find them. And if you can't find them, call us. That's why we made the hotline. That's why the foundation exists. Not for grown-up reasons or important official reasons. For you. For scared kids who need to know that someone out there cares. Because someone does. I promise. Someone really, really does." She stepped back from the microphone. For a moment, the room was completely silent. Then a sound started somewhere in the back. Not applause. Not cheering. Something rawer than that. Someone was crying. And then someone else. And then more and more, until the whole room seemed to be weeping together. These weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition. Of healing. Of hope. Marcus watched from the side of the stage as Emma climbed down from the box. Sarah met her at the bottom of the steps, scooping her up in a fierce hug. Mother and daughter held each other, while the room continued its catharsis. Hank appeared at Marcus's side. "Hell of a kid," he said. "Yeah. You know what she's done right, what you've done together. Helped some people. Made some noise. More than that." Hank gestured at the crowd. "Look at them. Really look. These aren't just people who came to support a charity. These are people who see themselves in Emma's story. People who've been where she was, or know someone who was, or fear for someone who might be. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. And today, every single one of them knows that help exists, that there's a number to call, that there are motorcycle people who give a damn." Hank clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "That's legacy, brother. That's something that outlasts all of us." Marcus watched the crowd slowly settle tissues being passed around strangers hugging each other. He saw Emma still in Sarah's arms, her face peaceful in a way that would have been impossible a year ago. He thought about what Hank had said. Legacy. For so long, Marcus had assumed his legacy would be nothing. A life lived on the margins, a death that would go unnoticed, a grave that nobody would visit. But now, standing in this room full of people who'd been changed by what started with $15 and a child's courage, he understood that legacy wasn't about monuments or memories. Legacy was about the ripples you created, the lives you touched, the people who were better because you existed. After the ceremony, as people mingled and shared stories and exchanged phone numbers, a woman approached Marcus. She was maybe 60 gray-haired, wearing a simple dress that had seen better days. "Excuse me," she said. "Are you Marcus Cole?" "That's me. I just wanted to thank you." Her voice trembled slightly. "My grandson is in a situation like Emma was in. His father, my son, he's not a good man. I've been trying to get custody for years, but the courts keep saying there's not enough evidence." "I'm sorry to hear that. I called your hotline last week. A woman named Diana talked to me for an hour. She connected me with a lawyer, a social worker, people who actually seem to care. I have a court date next month. The lawyer thinks we have a real chance this time." Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the one that came every time he heard a story like this. "I hope it works out for you and your grandson." "It will. I believe that now. I didn't believe it before I called, but I do now." She reached out and squeezed his hand. "Thank you for being there to answer." "Thank Emma. She's the one who started all this." "I know. I heard her speech. That little girl is something special." "Yeah, she really is." The woman walked away, and Marcus stood alone for a moment, processing. One phone call. One connection. One possible life changed. Multiply that by all the calls the hotline received every day, all the connections Diana and her team made, all the lawyers and social workers and volunteers who'd joined the cause. It was overwhelming when he let himself think about it. A small hand slipped into his. "Hey, kid." "Hey, Marcus." Emma looked up at him with those eyes that saw everything. "Did I do okay?" "You did amazing. I'm pretty sure you made every adult in the room cry. Including you. Including me." "Good. Crying helps the feelings get out." "So you keep telling me." They stood together watching the crowd. Sarah was talking to some reporters, telling her side of the story. Hank was shaking hands with local politicians who'd suddenly become very interested in supporting the foundation. The other Iron Wolves were scattered around the room, looking uncomfortable in their formal roles, but doing their best. "Marcus." Emma's voice was thoughtful. "Yeah. Do you think we changed things, really changed them?" Marcus considered the question. A year of work, dozens of families helped, a foundation that would continue long after any individual case was resolved. A hotline that rang every day with new voices asking for help. "I think we planted seeds," he said finally. "Some of them are growing already. Some won't grow for years. But they're in the ground now. They'll keep growing whether we're here to see them or not." "That's pretty," Emma said. "Like a garden." "Yeah, like a garden. Gardens need tending, though. You can't just plant seeds and walk away." "You're right. They do need tending. So we'll keep tending." Marcus looked at this child who'd become his daughter in every way that mattered. At Sarah, who'd become his partner. At the extended family of bikers and volunteers and survivors who'd gathered around them. "Yeah, kid. We'll keep tending." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good. Because I was thinking about other things we could do. Like, what if we had a camp for scared kids? A place where they could go and be safe and learn that not all grown-ups are dangerous. And what if we had mentors for kids who got out of bad situations, so they'd have someone to talk to who understood? And what if—" "Slow down." Marcus laughed. "We just launched the foundation today. Maybe we take a breath before planning the next 10 years. But there's so much to do. So many kids who need help." "There are. And we'll help as many as we can. But we can't help anyone if we burn out. Part of tending a garden is knowing when to rest." Emma considered this. "Okay, I can rest. For a little while. But then we get back to work. Then we get back to work." Sarah joined them, slipping her arm through Marcus's. "What are you two plotting over here?" "World domination," Emma said seriously. "Of course. Anything less would be disappointing." Sarah smiled at Marcus. "You ready to get out of here? I think our work for today is done." "More than ready." They walked out together, the three of them. Father, mother, daughter, even if the law didn't call them that yet. Behind them, the crowd continued to mingle, to share stories, to build connections that would ripple outward in ways nobody could predict. In Marcus's pocket, wrapped in a plastic bag that had grown worn from carrying, was $15. He'd never spent it. Never would. It was a reminder of where this all started, of what one child's courage could accomplish, of the moment his whole life changed direction. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm on their faces. Emma ran ahead to the car, her formal demeanor abandoned now that the cameras were gone, replaced by the boundless energy of a 7-year-old who'd been sitting still for too long. "Hey," Sarah said, stopping Marcus before they reached the car. "I'm proud of you. What you set up there, what you've built, it matters." "I didn't build it alone." "No. But you could have walked away that first day. You could have ignored a little girl with a black eye and gone about your business. You didn't. Everything that came after started with that choice." Marcus thought about that moment in the parking lot. The decision to listen instead of look away. The decision to help instead of hide. "I almost did walk away," he admitted. "For about half a second I thought about it." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." "Why not?" Marcus watched Emma climbing into the car, her dress bunched up around her knees as she struggled with the seatbelt. "Because she looked at me like I mattered, like I could actually make a difference. Nobody had ever looked at me like that before." He turned back to Sarah. "Turns out all I needed was for one person to believe in me. Now there are a lot of people who believe in you. I know, it's weird. It's wonderful. That too." They got in the car. Marcus started the engine. Emma immediately began chattering about dinner options and whether they could stop for ice cream. And did Marcus think the ceremony would be on the news tonight? And could she stay up late to watch it? Normal. Ordinary. The kind of chaos that families everywhere dealt with every single day. Marcus wouldn't have traded it for anything. A year ago, he'd been alone. Closed off. Certain that this kind of life wasn't for people like him. Now he understood that this kind of life was for everyone who had the courage to reach for it. Everyone who was willing to let themselves be changed. Everyone who could look at a scared child with $15 and see not a problem, but a possibility. The sun set over the Tennessee mountains as they drove home. Emma fell asleep in the back seat, finally worn out from her big day. Sarah held Marcus's hand over the center console, her thumb tracing patterns on his knuckles. And Marcus Cole, the scary biker who'd learned to become something more, drove toward a future he'd never imagined but couldn't live without. Because sometimes the person who looks the most dangerous becomes the safest place to turn. Sometimes salvation wears leather and rides a motorcycle. Sometimes $15 and a child's courage can change everything. And sometimes if you're brave enough to ask for help, you end up saving not just yourself, but everyone around you. One bruise at a time. One family at a time. 1 mile at a time. That was the legacy of a girl named Emma. That was the promise of the Iron Wolves. That was the truth that 15 crumpled dollars had taught them all. Love wins. Courage matters. Nobody has to be scared alone. Not anymore. Not ever again. Not